All right. What is up, guys? We got Brandon Reed today. I'm not going to give him any introduction. I'll let him do that all himself so we can get started right away.
All right, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Get going. All right, you can go. Introduce yourself, Brandon.
All right, I'm Brandon Reed. Wrestled at Lindsey Wilson College, three-time NAI national champion, and basically an entrepreneur now. That's it.
So, Brandon, I got you on here because I am immersed in the wrestling and grappling world with all things pain to performance. So when it comes to rehab or just straight performance, whatever it is, I love all that stuff for wrestlers and grapplers. You are obviously a huge part of wrestling and grappling. From, obviously your background is huge, but also now you're very, very big into grappling. Your instructionals and everything on that side goes extremely far.
Yep.
I got you on here, honestly, because I love your mindset when it comes to this combination.
Yeah.
Everything is basic and long-term from a mindset standpoint.
Yeah.
And that was very intriguing
100%.
to me, so I started following you, and I started liking your stuff. But I do think a main thing that I was getting questions a lot about on my side was the transition and combination of high school versus college wrestling, and then, of course, the transition of wrestling to BJJ on both sides. So I will let you take the reins. Let's start with just wrestling, and let's start high school versus college, even looking through the different ranks of a high schooler, the different levels of a high schooler, different levels of a college wrestler. You've been on all of them, so I want to get your take on the biggest differences between high school and college.
Yeah, of course. Clearly, there's a ton of differences between high school and college. The most obvious one is like the maturity of like the physical maturity of the people that you wrestle against. Of course, in high school, you could either be wrestling against a ninth grader or you could be wrestling against a senior. So the disparity of like who you're wrestling, like you can either be wrestling basically a kid or you can be wrestling like a grown man. That's clearly for me the biggest difference. And then funny enough, I think like lots of high schoolers lack any type of strength and conditioning program, whereas most college wrestlers, at least I would hope, are doing some type of strength and conditioning. If at the NAI level they're doing it, I would guess D1 to D3, most schools have some type of strength and conditioning. And then lastly, for anyone that's like a pure wrestler, is the top and bottom game. Like, being good on top was not something that was as important when I was in high school, whereas like in college, being good on top meant a lot more. You have riding time. And then being good on bottom is extremely huge. Just because, as anyone knows, even at the lower levels of college wrestling, like people are really freaking good on top, and turning means a lot more in college than it does in high school. So, yeah, those things: maturity, strength and conditioning, and the top and bottom game are probably the three biggest things for me.
With top and bottom, it's also a game of like you can only score so many points in college. You're not going to blow open a match and go back and forth as much as you would in high school. So the opportunities to score, if you're sitting on bottom, you don't have an opportunity to get takedowns and score points. So that's also another huge thing that I've seen, is that if you can just hold a guy down, you stop his offense completely. So that's a huge part that I've seen.
Yeah, 100%. Unless you're like Spencer Lee and like you're extremely like good at just bar tilting everyone, and there's not like very many people like that. It's harder to score on top for sure in college, like way harder. But likewise, like I said, it's a lot harder to get off the bottom. And I think one of the bad things sometimes about college wrestling is riding time, because it incentivizes a lot of stalling on top versus like incentivizing turning. But that's just like a opinion I have that might be a little controversial.
So what do you think would be the better way to go about that? Because I think it's great, because to me, I see top as a position that if you're riding somebody, that takes so much work, and you should get a point for that. Even if think about how hard it is to ride a guy without turning, it still is, right? So to me, but I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on that.
So, yeah, it's like Okay, of course, I don't think riding time is necessarily a bad thing. I think that riding time needs to be. I think there's too much incentive to ride and not enough incentive to turn. And I feel like if you get that riding time point and you're riding a guy for 2 minutes with no actual turn, I think stall calls should come a little bit faster than what they do. Because for the most part, even in college, I played the game. I would get my riding time, and then I would kind of act like I'm turning the guy. I might grab a wrist and then go to the left and, maybe jump to the right and make sure I'm not riding his hips. But it's a very easy way to stall. Again, like I said, I utilize riding time a lot, clearly. Top was one of my best positions, but there's some boring matches where the guy, all it is riding. It's just purely riding, and then nothing's happening, and then there's no stall calls because it's very easy to play the ref. Jump left or right, grab a wrist, act like you're putting on a half, and then you're like, oh, like I'm doing something, but realistically you're not. So creates a lot of boring matches in my opinion, and obviously it's a lot harder to turn people than I'm making it sound, but that's just an extreme opinion.
I think it's great. I definitely understand what you mean because it happens all the time where bottom guy get banged for stalling when he's doing a lot of work and the top guy's kind of just riding parallel and sitting there.
Oh, yeah.
So what were your biggest struggles transitioning from high school to college? Was that your biggest thing too, the top and bottom game?
Easily. I feel like I was pretty good on my feet. I wrestled freestyle my whole life. So I was I thought I was pretty good on my feet, placed the Fargo a couple times. But my issue was definitely like when I would go against like really good top riders, especially leg riders. Like funny enough, like there's a lot of leg riders at heavyweight now. And when I got into college my first year, there was like a couple guys who like rode me out and beat me purely off of leg riding, or just being really good at getting my hands heavy on top. So I'd say like from my first year of college to like my second year of college, like that summer in between was almost exclusively focused on like getting off of bottom. Obviously we clearly worked on takedowns and stuff too, but like the big major focus was like, getting into power position, trying to get up and escape as soon as possible. Because, like we said, if you can't escape, even if the guy doesn't turn you, they're going to end up beating you by either stalling you out on top or just riding. So definitely bottom.
Yeah. And bottom for me, I was always someone who wrestled offensively as soon as the match started. Mm-hmm. So if I did make a mistake on my feet or something, bottom was my worst part by far. So a mistake in the first 15 seconds, I'm taken down, now I'm ridden out. We didn't really even get to see what would happen on our feet. I made a mistake, we didn't get a restart. And that was always my biggest problem, is that I would be taken down and I didn't really get to try my offense out. What was your high school career like before going to college? And then I do want to talk about why NAIA or why the college you chose.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started wrestling when I was 13. So like that year after 8th grade, like the summer after 8th grade. So not high school, but like not middle school. It's kind of weird. But basically I started freshman year, 13 to 14.
So you started in the summer?
Yeah, I started in the summer.
Wow.
So it was funny because my school, Iroquois High School, they would have their football tryouts in the summer. So they'd have guys come out and do it. So I went out because I was like, I want to try a sport. I used to play soccer, and I was like, I'm going to try to play football now because I was a goalie and I was getting big. And I was like, okay, I'm no longer going to play soccer. I'm way too big for this sport now. And so I went to go try football. And then funny enough, just during the trials during the summer, I practiced like one day, and so these tryouts were like a week. So because there's so many kids, and I practiced for one day, and then for all the other days, the coach just had me sit on a bench and watch the tryouts. And so to be honest, I was pretty pissed off about it, and I was like, okay, whatever. I was a kid, so I was probably a little bit immature, but I was like, they don't think I'm good enough to do this. I was a chubby kid too, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna quit now. And I told the defensive coordinator that. And he happened to be, funny enough, the wrestling coach. Okay, so the defensive coordinator was the wrestling coach. And on that same day that I told him I was going to quit, he was going to go do the wrestling conditioning right after the football tryout practice. So it was like, they're like about an hour apart. And he was like, do you want to come try to do wrestling? And I was like, sure, why not, whatever. And then I went and, that's all she wrote from there. I had fun and I kept going. So after that, I ended up placing at state twice. So So my first year, obviously it sucked. Everybody's first year sucks. And then I ended up being a state runner-up the next year. Then I ended up getting third, got upset. Sad days. But then I ended up going to Fargo. So after my junior year, I moved, and then I became ineligible to wrestle during the high school season, because in Kentucky, if you move near the season and there's not a substantial reason or whatever, they'll disqualify you from competition. And so I moved, wasn't allowed to wrestle the high school state tournament. So instead, I shifted my focus towards Fargo, because I was like, I want to go to college in Fargo. If you place it in Fargo, colleges want you. So I trained the whole year, basically freestyle and Greco. Ended up going to Fargo. Ended up placing 7th in freestyle and then 4th in Greco. And then I was like, okay, great. This is it. And then I actually ended up going to Flow Nationals a couple months before that and placing 4th. But Flow Nationals is not that tough. It's not like Fargo. So it was I placed 4th if no one cared. And then, ended up placing at Fargo a couple times. And I was like, I'm a senior. Now I got to pick a college. And there was only a couple months. Which, that leads into the why did I choose the NAI instead of Division I.
Right.
It was the biggest thing was I wasn't being recruited. So there was literally only a few months before college started and my commitment to a school. So it was all right.
Even so you were a state runner-up as a sophomore, third in the state as a junior.
Yeah.
You're not getting recruited at this point by, a bunch of schools?
No, I think it's just because I was maybe it's because I had a 220 and that's it's a weird weight class. So they were there's I don't know, no one was hyperly interested in me at the time until Fargo. And then after I placed at Fargo, I had a ton of coaches hitting me up. And so I looked at a couple of schools, University of Wisconsin, Kent State, Ohio. But then those were the D1 schools. But then I had Notre Dame College D2 hit me up, and I was like, whoa! I love Joey Davis. He was one of my favorite wrestlers to watch. He was a D2 kid. And then there was Lindsey Wilson and Campbellsville, which were rival schools. So I had a couple D1, one D2, and then a couple of NAI. I visited the schools, talked to the coaches, practices with the teams. And to be honest, the D1 schools basically didn't give me any money. They were you're good, and you placed at Fargo, but you haven't really proven yourself yet to be good enough to be here. You're good enough, we want you here, but you're not one of our blue chip recruits. And these weren't even great D1 schools, So it was just you guys just telling me I'm not to be honest, I didn't.
Was that kind of a turnoff for you in itself?
It was, right? I know.
Just not being, you're that guy. You're a Fargo placer, especially in whatever small sample size you're working with. Just of course your club, your state, whatever it is. Yeah. But then you go to a big college and it's you're just another run of the mill.
Yeah, 100%. Especially because I'm from Kentucky. I'm not from Ohio or Pennsylvania or California. So I'm from a state that's not notorious for good wrestling. Even though I placed at Fargo, I feel like they kind of put more weight on the fact that I didn't win state. Maybe they didn't, maybe I didn't. Everyone's thinking different. And of course, they have a ton of recruits. So I get it, to be honest. But some of those D1 schools were a bit condescending, and I was just my personality didn't match with it, and the money that they offered was basically walk-on scholarships. And so that was the big thing. Is I come from a single mother home, so very, very poor. And I was like, okay, if I go to Kent State, for example, I'm going to owe, by the time I graduate, I'm going to owe $50,000. University of Wisconsin, same thing. Ohio, same thing. So I go to these schools, they give me no money. Maybe I get lucky. Maybe I work my butt off and I become an All-American one of those years. And then I get a raised scholarship. But by the time I graduate, I'm still going to have all that debt, And as you know, and as I know, it's you could be a D1 All-American and you don't know how to make money with your accolades after college. People lack business, just any type of business mindset whatsoever. So it's I didn't know that I was going to be an entrepreneur and that maybe that would help. But basically it was a big money thing. And then on top of the kind of condescending thing. And then Notre Dame. So after that, after I kind of fleshed out those, it was Notre Dame, Campbellsville, and Lindsey Wilson College. I loved all three schools. I really did. But for me, I ended up being like, okay, I want to be in Kentucky. So I cut off Notre Dame. I was like, this is a great school. But after like kind of like reviewing like my priorities a little bit, I was like, I want to be Kentucky. And they're like close enough to my family, but just a little bit away, but close enough that like I can possibly go visit.
How far away from home?
2 hours.
How many hours? Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
easy.
distance.
Yeah, it was easy. And so, honestly, the thing between Campbellsville and Lindsey Wilson was just the coaches. I really liked the coach at Lindsey Wilson. He's like an old dude from Wisconsin. You know, he had a lot of like moxie. He was just very like, I don't know, he was a tough dude, and I loved that. You know, so ended up going to Lindsey Wilson. They were like, we're gonna give you a full ride. You know, because it's like an NAI school getting a Fargo All-American. They're like, hell yeah, like this guy's gonna be one of the stars. And so I was like, okay, they appreciate me. And then, so yeah, that's basically why I ended up choosing the school I chose was money, respect too, and the closeness of home.
Did you know what you wanted to do before you went in? So I know, something like Wisconsin might be worth the investment, where you get to wrestle and you get to go to, a big name school like that.
Yeah.
Where depending on what you want to do, it could be a very good decision. Being $40,000 in debt coming out of Wisconsin might not be the worst thing in the world.
Right. No, I didn't. And see, that was another thing. So it's like I was going to college for wrestling. So I didn't have I wasn't like what I am now, where I'm entrepreneurial, right? Like my mindset is like, how can I like do something to build a brand or market myself later in the future? Mm-hmm. Back then, it maybe would have been an even better choice to be like, okay, I'm going to go to Penn State or Wisconsin. I might be in debt, but I'm going to try to market myself just with the name, but back then it was just like, nah, like it was, I want to wrestle and I'm poor and I don't want to go into any debt. And no one in my family had ever been to college. It's like, I had the basic 9-to-5 family, you know what I mean? So they're just like, are you going to pay for that? And I was like, nope, probably not. So I mean, honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I go into college. Like, I was like, I want to wrestle. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an issue, by the way, that, I've talked about all this time, but at the time I was just like, I just want to wrestle, I just want to wrestle and I don't want to be in debt. So that's that.
And that's, probably the quality that made you such a good wrestler is you really just had tunnel vision and all you wanted to do was wrestle, wrestle, wrestle.
Yeah.
And you'll figure it out when the time comes, which clearly you have.
Yeah.
And so you just finished your senior year. Very successful college career. I'm sure you had to be satisfied at this point.
Yeah.
Couldn't have really done much more than you did. Did transfers ever play a role? Transferring to a bigger school after you won your first or even your second.
Yeah. I got asked to. I had a ton of people, a ton of D1 schools call out to me, call out to my coach. My coach was even trying to, funny enough, Barry Davis, when I was still in school, he's really close friends with my coach, Coach Ruff. They're from Wisconsin, around the same age. And Barry was trying to get me to come over before he had retired from Wisconsin. They had Connor Medbury over there and everything. But at the time, to be honest, I got into other things besides wrestling at my school. So I got into the international student program and I started studying Japanese. So I studied Japanese for the 4 years I was there. And I was in a really good program to be surrounded, an area where I could really grow, and there wasn't much of a ceiling for my hobbies outside of wrestling while I was at the school. So I got really invested to the things outside of wrestling. And after I won my first national title, that's genuinely what kept me, was I have all these other things that I do at Lindsey that if I go to a different school, I'm not going to be able to do while I'm there. But I of course I would have liked to maybe had tried to wrestle at those places, but man, I'm happy I chose what I chose. I'm happy I chose to do what I did, because I gained a lot outside of the wrestling from it.
Yeah. When did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur and go attack this thing by yourself? I think it's very obvious that you're good at what you do and you coach all the time and love to do it. I think anyone who's an online coach can see who's really a coach in person and understands what's going to work with the level that I coach at. I don't want to get into that because there's no point.
Yeah.
All I want to say is that it's very clear that you coach athletes in person all the time.
Dude, so much. Like, so I graduated college. I was like, dang it, what I'm going to do? I'm not going to go to Japan because COVID-19 was going on. I wasn't allowed to go to Japan. So I wanted to be an English teacher initially. Like, towards the end of my career, like my college career, I was like, okay, I'm going to be an English teacher in Japan. I'm studying Japanese. COVID happened, trashed that dream. I was like, oh, well, not going to do that. I'm going to try to coach in college. Try to do that. Did not enjoy it at all. So I came home and I started doing jiu-jitsu. All right, so I started doing jiu-jitsu, and then my coach's name is Chewy, jiu-jitsu, really big entrepreneur in the jiu-jitsu field,
Yes.
Huge name guy in the jiu-jitsu area. And then he started to basically, so I was doing private lessons full-time. I was almost doing 20, 30 private lessons a week at the gym while also training jiu-jitsu. And then he was like, dude, you could do this better. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He was like, you could make so much more money, like, versus like doing all these in person like private lessons. He was like, you need to like find a way to like make income without, like passive income. It's kind of a buzzword right now, but it genuinely was like, there's ways to make passive income. And I kind of ignored it. And then I went to B Team, which is a really big name jiu-jitsu place. And I met this guy named James Smith. The dude was, millions of followers on his Instagram, and me and him rolled together every day. And then he just slowly, like every day was like telling me, like trying to teach me new things about being entrepreneurial. And the number one thing that stuck with me, and this is when it all started, was he was like, he's funny, he's English. So he was like, you dumb, you dumb cunt. Like he called me a dumb cunt. Being funny. Yeah. He was like, you have great wrestling and you do jiu-jitsu. You should start posting every day. And I was like, what? I hated the idea of posting every day on Instagram. Funny enough. He was like, you need to start posting every day because you have, like, in a couple of years, you're going to have the ability to, like, make some money off of this, And I was like, okay, you're right. I'll start doing that. And so I left B Team, and I was like, okay, this is weird. It's uncomfortable, but I'm going to start posting every day. This was before Reels got big, so I just started posting, like, pictures.
So why'd you leave? Why did you leave there?
I was just visiting.
Okay.
So, I was training full-time with Chewy, and I was saving up money, and I was like, oh, I want to go do a jiu-jitsu trip. So I was like, I'm going to go visit B Team for a week, and booked a ticket, visited B Team for a week, came back home, continued to go with Chewy. And then, so I came home, started posting every single day. It was mostly picture posts and stuff, because like I said, this was before Reels was a thing. And then Reels started to come up, and I was at a wrestling camp, Belfry in like West Virginia. And my girlfriend was there, and at the end of all my wrestling camps, so this was a 5-day wrestling camp, and so at the end of every wrestling camp, like the last session, what I'll do is I'll review everything we went over. So I write down everything. So I don't know how other people do wrestling camps, but I write down everything that I'm going to do for the whole camp. I'm very like, that's just how I am. And then at the very end, I was like, hey, Katie, my girlfriend, I asked her to record because I was like, all right, guys, we're going to review all the techniques real quick, and then we're going to get into like some live. And I asked Katie to record it, and it was like 30 minutes of review. And then I was like, Reels are really big right now. I'm going to start to clip these. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to clip these, throw them on Instagram. Clip these, throw them on Instagram. So I had about 30 days worth of Reels on there. And then like after those 30 days of posting were over, like some of them went viral, and then some and I had like, there was one like week where I gained like 20,000 followers like towards the end. And I was like, oh crap, like these Reels, like, and I wasn't showing anything fancy. It was just showing basic stuff and just being myself. Like I wasn't trying to like be like a influencer. I was literally just showing kids that are like a high school wrestling camp, like basic stuff, and posting it every day. And then I went from having like, having like 7,000 followers to having like 27,000 followers in like a month. And then I was like, whoa, this is weird. Like, what the heck? Like, I don't know what this means. Like, can I do something with this? And then I did that. I continued to do the private lessons in the camps. And then eventually just worked my way up to learning how to use Kajabi, where I built my own website and started my own instructionals. And now basically the majority, like my career, like I make plenty of money is from Kajabi and instructionals. And then I do privates on the side. Because of like the instructionals and stuff, and because of Instagram, I was able to I tripled the prices of my private lessons, and my camps are a lot more expensive now too. But now that's where I am now, just sell instructionals, as I'm sure you see me spam them every day. And then have an email list. So basically use my email list to, sell
every
personality. Day. Yep, every single day. I do my email list.
Every day.
Yeah. And and then the private lessons I do they're so fun. It's great because before I was taking anybody. Me and Chewy were just talking about it. I would take anybody. You never wrestled before? Good. You suck? Good. Now I'm just like, you have to have 2 years of wrestling experience. You got to pay me $75. You get 1 hour, not an hour and a half. Like it's great because I get really good. I make way more money from my side hustle, which is private lessons, than I did when I was doing 20 to 30 private lessons a week. So I can do 7 private lessons and make the same amount of money, if not more, than I was making for 20. Just because of the power of the freaking Instagram stuff now. That's basically. I know I ranted a bit, but that's basically where I got
not
to.
At all. Let me see if I could. 1 second. This might. All right, never mind.
Cool.
All right. Yeah, I love it all. It's like I got started just from. I figured I knew a little bit more than my friends, and if I posted on Instagram, I could help some people out. So I was really into this, and people who are less into it, I could just help them out. And then it turned into, more of what it is now.
Yeah.
But like you said, it starts from I was coaching in person. I got results in person. I live this stuff. I love this stuff. And I'm just going to document and put some on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's basic. It's real. And it's helpful.
Yeah.
It's nothing crazy. You're not putting on a personality. You're being yourself. And that, at least what I found, has been the most helpful thing for other people. It's truly actionable items that work, and they work because you do them all the time.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but a lot of my posts, we will, just from conversations in the weight room, they're just conversations in the weight room that that athletes give me questions on or whatever it is. I'll write it down, and I will put a camera up, and I'll talk in front of the camera. And then I upload on Instagram, and that's it.
Yeah, that's the same. I mean, my emails are literally like Chewy had a great point, and James too. It's like everything is content, right? So like, I'll get asked the same questions a million times. I mean, as you know, like there's probably going to be 100 people at least in this year who are going to message you and say, "Hey, what's the best way to bench press for wrestling or jiu-jitsu?" It's it's a simple question, right? I get asked the same damn questions every day. What's the best takedown for wrestling? What's the best takedown for MMA? What's the best? And you're like, boom, this is content, or like for me, like my content is supposed to be, how can I give value by answering a question, like solving a problem, like that's how you monetize this stuff is you don't like, you solve a problem. Like your content should be solving a problem. Your email should be solving a problem. Your products should be solving a problem. Versus just giving unsolicited advice, which it's weird to kind of balance it because anyone who doesn't do this stuff is gonna be like, you're a douchebag. You post all the time. You think you know everything, but realistically, like most of my stuff is just like you said. It's from conversations or from DMs or even just random thoughts in my head. Like the other day, funny enough, I was like, dang, I have really bad knees now. Not horrible. I can still shoot and stuff, but it's like I had a bad strength and conditioning coach in high school, so I was not doing things right, or I was, doing crazy, like I was doing like a million sprints and not running shoes, not warming up, not doing that. And it's like, oh, how can you, I was like, you know what? I know someone's going to ask this question. So I was like, what takedowns are really good for people with bad knees? And then I created a product on it. I created a whole product on takedowns for people with bad knees. The product does great. And you're like, I have bad knees. I know my takedowns work. This product, what problem is it solving? It's solving the problem of people like me or people who are older who don't have great knees, and now they still want to do takedowns. And okay, here's this product. And okay, I just made a product on that. How about I make an email telling a story about a time that I used this takedown with bad knees, and at the end of that email, I plugged, hey, here's a product if you want to learn how to do this. And then on Instagram, I can talk about that too. And then it's like it's this content recycling of content that helps you monetize essentially. And it's not just some BS I see, like people wanting to see backflips out of single legs and stuff, and I'm like, You're not gonna get that from me, bro. You know, go to
Yeah.
my channel for that.
I think so. Two things on that. The first thing is that one, you clearly have the knowledge and experience of being real, right? I trust you, your story, your personality, the things you say. It's so obvious that you do this stuff, live this stuff, love this stuff, and so you have this problem yourself, but you have this problem with such a background and a view that nobody else can really have.
Yeah.
Boom. It's very real, and now you're solving problems legit. It's not like an outside view. If I had bad knees, what would I do? And you try to make some stuff up that might not work.
Yeah. There's a lot of that, by the way. There's a lot of that.
Of course.
You know?
And then the second thing that you said that I love is the type of content you produce is not to get – it's not in a direct way to get followers. It's more of a way to help your followers, and if more people want that, then you'll get more followers. It's not like you're trying to go viral off this stuff.
No.
You're trying to help people, and then if you find that helps people, then you'll get more followers, and that's fine. But it's more like I'm going to help people solve problems, and then people like their problems solved, so they'll come to me. You're not trying to go viral. It's a completely different way, because my kids ask me stuff like that all the time. It's like, of course, there's reasons to make content that will reach more people, sure. But I'm not going to make, like, reaction videos as much because that's what I see as more of an influencer content. If I'm trying to get to 150K followers and, and get, I guess, supplement ads, I really don't even know, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's not really even a thought for me. I just want to help people the same way that I do in person and somehow give that same view online. And it sounds like you think the same exact way.
Yeah. Of course. It's like, again, I always talk about Chewy because he's my mentor, especially on all this stuff. It's like virality is it's futile, basically. It's like, so think about this. You can have a guy who posts a viral video. Let's say this viral video, let's exaggerate, gets a million likes. Okay. But you can click on this guy's page and you see he has 10,000 followers. You look at all his other posts, none of his other posts have engagement, but maybe every once in a while he'll get like one video that's viral. Okay, did that video really produce value? Okay, so let's say most of the time the answer is no. Okay, so that video didn't produce value. All right, that person doesn't actually care about you. They thought the video was kind of entertaining, but they forgot about you. Now let's say it's like a video like mine, yours, Chewy's. I can give you a simple thing like, hey, keep your head up on a single leg. That's the whole video. Okay, maybe it doesn't get 1 million likes. Maybe it gets 1,000 likes. But maybe they see like, hey, he has an email list. He helped me out. Maybe I want to learn more from this guy. Okay, I like this guy. Oh, tomorrow he posts, okay, here's how I do an ankle pick better. Oh, then he posted like good stuff about here's how you sprawl it. Oh man, like this guy's actually like helping me. Like this is like real actionable stuff. I really like this guy. And now a year later, this person's still following you. They haven't bought anything yet. They still like your stuff. 2 years later, this person's still following you, and they're like, I've made a little bit of money. I like this guy. Let me help him out. Let me buy his product. Like, so it's like, this is long-term thinking versus the short-term viral thinking. It's like, how can I build relationships with people and make them, like, allow them to trust me or get them to trust me so that hopefully and eventually, not only am I giving value to them, but eventually they reciprocate and they give value to me. And it's like, that's why virality is dead. Like trying to just be viral is actually not that good of a thing because no one's going to remember you. They'll remember how you help them, not how you entertain them, so that's the way I look at my content. So, yeah.
It's very true. Like if you can truly put out content that someone will connect with and do, and save it, go and do it, and be like, oh wow, then you'll gain trust.
Yeah. And
boom, and trust to me is so important because obviously nobody really knows each other.
Yeah, they don't, like, you might show, like, obviously, and this is like the preface what I just said, there's a bit of infotainment that comes with it, meaning you do need to be entertaining, but you can't lean too hard into the entertainment or into the information. It's like creating this little bit of balance of, it's like, you're feeding ducks a little piece of bread. You're not going to give them the whole loaf, right? You give them a little bit and they keep following you. You give them a little bit, they keep following you. and eventually that duck is yours. Like it's a funny way to look at it, but that's how it is. It's like it's the infotainment thing. But my issue with, I'm not saying any names, but my issue with some people is it's a little bit too much entertainment, and they think maybe they're giving out good content because they have a ton of followers or they have like a little virality, and you're like, oh man, this isn't gonna last very long. You know, like, what you're doing it's not sustainable. Okay, but yeah, sorry again.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think every industry, we're pretty close in what we do. It's and I see the same thing all the time, and it's so easy to get caught up in that stuff. From you watch a video, and from a coach's standpoint, it's like, wow, I can't believe anybody like that. Yeah. And you're like, oh wow, I need to start putting videos out like that, or change my whole game. And it's like, no way. Stick to what you know. Stick to what you do, what you live, what you love, and it'll keep going. Yeah,
of course. It's funny enough, I tell my the parents of the kids that I do private lessons with, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna warn you. I'm never going to show a high crotch because I've never shot a high crotch in my life. And we're going to do a ton of drilling. It's like a ton of basic college wrestling drills that every college probably follows, where you're just drilling for an hour. And I'm showing very, very basic stuff. Past that, you may never get past like that level with me. It's like, I'll give you one thing, like a little nugget every day, but the focus will be mostly on drilling and become like building good habits with your drilling so that you can have good, results in your matches. Whereas some people sell like, I'm just going to show you a million techniques. And you're like, that's not me. Like, I don't sell that. I have the same little message that I copy and paste to every parent who messages me. And basically this private $75. You need a partner, and there's going to be a lot of drilling. And it's like, you may not learn a million techniques from me, but you're going to learn how to drill properly, and I'm going to help you build good habits. But it's real. Like, I sell real stuff that works.
Well, and that's also the fun. Getting back to what you originally said, where as you start to build your business and build your following, and a lot of people trust you and you're higher value now, you get to do things the way you want to do them. And when you do things the way you want to do them, you get better results. And that starts the flywheel in itself, because now you're doing the right things, you're getting the good results. And that only builds and builds and builds. Where I did the same thing originally, where my workouts would be catered to what the athlete wanted sometimes in the short term. But now it gets more and more of, I have my model, my system, my plan. Let's stick to it because of what you originally told me your goals were. And again, get better results, build more trust, more people follow in, and then we just repeat.
Yeah, so, and it can definitely be boring too. Like that's the sad truth. But good kids and supportive parents will be okay with boring versus something new every day. Like I had a kid, my first state champ. He won state last week, and this kid, almost 2 years of doing privates with me, so like he was okay when we first started, not great, but then like after 2 years, his dad is awesome. Like dad, professional bodybuilder, et cetera, but this kid every day for 2 years, or every session, we done about 1 or 2 sessions a week. Every session, we basically do the same drills, like almost exactly the same drills, plus a little bit of technique. But we did that for 2 years, and he went from not placing at state to being a state champion. And you're like, it doesn't take that. Like, if you do the boring stuff and you do the little things right, it does not take that long to get some success. Even though obviously, like middle school, high school, state is not a high level. It's like that applies to college too, or even strength and conditioning, right? It's all the same. But lots of people are just like, why are you not showing my son how to do a spladle? And I'm like, because it's stupid. Like anyone can teach them how to do a spladle. Like I want to teach them how to be actually good wrestlers and I want to teach them how to train when they're not with me. Like I want them to be able to go to their high school practice and say, and like when they're drilling, be like, this is how I need to drill how I was drilling with Coach Reed. While these other kids are slacking off and drilling like turds, I want to drill like a savage. I'm like, here are the habits I want to have when I'm drilling, because Coach Reed said, this, and I'm like, I say I'm not the best wrestler ever. I'm an NAI wrestler, I'm not a Division I national champion. I know that, but I also know that like I understand how to make good wrestler. Like I know how to do good wrestling and create like a system or a program where wrestlers can get good, even if they are Division I wrestlers. So Yeah, another rant. Sorry.
I love it. That's one of my biggest things. And as like social media and Instagram go on, you get caught up in different trends or whatever it is. But the thing I'm always big on is I never want to be that guy that you look at and just say, oh, he's got cool workouts or he's got cool exercises. Yeah. Because it's like cool wrestling moves.
Yeah.
That's not what getting good is.
No.
It's how I always said the best wrestling coaches will benefit the most from those wrestling move guys. They'll look at a wrestling move and they'll see a small variation, a small tweak, where it fits into their big model, their plan, where they might be able to use it, or an athlete that they have. Same thing with exercises. The people, they get so many views, but the only people that truly benefit the most from them are the coaches that fully understand, where can I put this into my model? What does this look like to me? And how can I use this? It's not just like copy, paste, I'm automatically good.
Yeah.
Like that just never did. So I get so fired up too because it's like cool workouts, cool exercises, cool wrestling moves. Everyone knows that stuff doesn't get you to dance, you know?
It doesn't. There's a lot of nuance and people don't understand that. And it's like, it's even the same stuff that this is why it's like, it's healthy not to look at comments too much, but sometimes I'm just like, man, like F you. Like, it's like, they're like, well, why didn't you do it like this? Or why didn't you do it like that? And I'm like, dude, bro, I'm a lot better than you at wrestling. I'm sorry I didn't do a freaking broomstick instead of doing a high angle go behind where I attack the ankle and then go behind. I know that's too basic for you and I know it's not cool, but guess what Gable Stevenson won an Olympic championship with? A freaking high angle go behind at the very end. It's like, I don't do anything that doesn't work. It's like, you guys want to see like fancy, cute things? You can go watch one of these crummy, crappy wrestling pages that literally will tell you that anything works and then show you a video of some really good kid doing it. But it's like, you know why Roman Bravo Young can do that crazy stuff he does? It's because he's damn good at the basics. Like, he has the ability. He fakes good. He hand fights well. He threatens people with basics, and so now he can actually do these cool things. But then you get some really crappy kid, and you're like, I don't want this crappy kid doing front flips over people. I actually want him to hand fight hard, get good at a 1-2, like a fake and a shot, and I want him to do that for a couple years, and then maybe once he actually develops good habits everywhere, he can start to open up and do the fancier things. But most people don't know it. I call those people, again, my coach, we call those people crabs in a bucket. They just want to bring people down, but they don't understand like what works, you know, and it's not the fancy stuff you see on Instagram or YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely hard to stay on track sometimes.
Yeah.
And follow the model, follow the plan.
Yeah.
Because man, it's like it drives me nuts.
It does, and I'm sure you struggle with it too, or at least I used to struggle with it. Me and my girlfriend, like, I used to not be a confident coach. So like I would like 2 years ago when I first started doing private lessons, I used to like really, really feed into the athlete. I'd be like, what do you want to do today, little Bobby? But it's like, bump little Bobby. He's stupid. He don't know what he wants to do. He don't know what he needs to do. Like, I love the kid, but these kids are not good at wrestling, and their parents are not good at wrestling. And even if they are still kids, or their parents are still like, here, like, there's a system that works. Like, we need to put them through the correct system, and it's like, it's not fun, and it's not. And I've lost clients because of this, where they're like, oh, you guys just drill so much. Like, why isn't there an hour of live wrestling? Why aren't we doing more live wrestling? Yeah. Like, how come you're doing this technique? You've done this double leg you've done a post double leg every single week. Like, why are you doing the same? And I'm like, hey man, like, you don't have to be here. You know, like, this isn't free. You know, you pay for this. Like, you don't have, like, if you don't want to be here, it's cool. But it's like, long term, it's very important to find a strength and conditioning coach, or a wrestling coach, or a track coach, or a basketball, like a coach that like really cares about your kid getting good, and not about just making your kid happy or making the parent happy. Because like I said, when I first started, I did not know, I was not confident enough to be like, no, sorry, pause. Like, this is my work. Like, this is my system. This is my workout. This is how we're going to do this. And hey, like, I actually plan on us getting good over 2 years, not 2 weeks. You know, I'm not going to teach you a million things in 2 weeks, which a lot of parents who are very uninformed do not know that's actually a bad way to go about it, is like learning too much technique. But again, it's like I could rant about that stuff all day.
Me too, and especially two things. Right now, I get that all the time, or I'll get that in January, and we got states in February. It's like, this is the time where strength and conditioning looks the most boring, and it looks like anybody can do it. And it's like we do the most basic stuff, and it's so little, and it's really not exciting at all. That's a month before, but when you zoom out and you see what all 12 months look like, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And that's what has to happen. Like you said, you have to zoom out to the full plan. All right, does this make sense? Cool. Stick with it now. Yeah. And that's the game. I know you have to go in a second. The last thing I want to touch on, I'm interested to hear this from you.
Cool.
Did you ever struggle with pricing, charging money, and all of that? Because I know, your background, and something for me is like when I was in high school, I had a job and I worked, and I always tried to pay where I could. So it's just an interesting dynamic because I know the amount of work and time and money that I've spent on seminars, traveling, coaches, just dirty work that I've put in. Yeah. And it's like, but at the same time, I never want to not be able to help somebody, and I'll never not help a ninth grader who has knee pain because, that's just impossible to pay. So it's it's a tough dynamic, and I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, again, like I go back to like my mentor, Chewy, and, he has when he opens up his phone, he clicks it, there's a number on the back of the phone that says 511. And I was like, well, what does that mean? He was like, that's what my time is worth. That's what 1 hour of my time is worth. I was like, what the heck? Like $511. He was like, yeah. And I was like, well, like, why? He was like, well, I'm a black belt. I've been a black belt for 10 years. So I've grappled for over 25 years. I've won a bunch of really tough stuff. I've coached for about 15 years. Yeah, 5'11" for 15 years. That's not a lot. He was like, divide 5'11", and I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because at first, like I said, when I first started doing private lessons, I'd be like, all right, guys, it's $35 for an hour and a half. Now my lessons are 1 hour for $75. So like the contrast here is like $35 for an hour and a half, and you don't even have to have a partner. Matter of fact, I'll wrestle with you. This was me at the beginning. And I learned real quick, and Chewy told me before I started doing these privates, he said, you are undervaluing yourself a lot. And I'm like, man, I'm just an NAI wrestler, like most people don't even know who I am. And he was like, Brandon, he was like, that's so stupid. And I was like bump away, like, go away, Chewy. And so I did these $35 an hour privates, and then I would be wrestling at these privates. So this, including my like 10 times of training a week in jiu-jitsu, I might be doing 4 or 5 privates where I'm actually wrestling with the kids. I was destroying my body, and eventually enough became enough. Eventually it was like, nope. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to raise my prices from 35 to 50 an hour. Oh, okay. Like some people left, but then some parents stayed. Like they're like, cool. All right. Then the Instagram stuff started to go up, like I said, and I started to come out with products, and I was like, oh damn, like I'm making a couple $1,000s a month off of these products. Let me raise my prices up a little bit. And then I went to like 55 or 60. And I was like, and then again, some parents stuck from 35 to 60. And then I was like, okay, I'm making a little bit more money from products and instructionals. I actually don't want to do privates. I don't enjoy doing privates. And I was like, what does it cost? Like, what would it cost for me to enjoy doing privates? Like, and I was like, what do I need to do? Like, how can I what compromise can I make with myself to where I still do privates and I enjoy them and I get that extra pocket money? And I was like, I don't want to work out with any kids. I want the kids to not suck. I do not. And I mean, they're all kids suck. Like they're all horrible at wrestling, but I love them. But like, I want them to have at least 2 years of wrestling. So I'm not teaching people how to do a sprawl, and $75 an hour. And I'm only doing an hour privates. And I was like, okay, if I can do those 3 things, I'll do private lessons. And I was like, all right, boom. I started doing that. So I still have 10 parents, meaning 10 kids who almost like weekly or bi-weekly, who started at $35 an hour, who stuck with me to this $75 an hour. And then I have a couple of kids who do it multiple times a week. And it's like, because And so what I realized, like at this point, this is my advice for anyone else who's doing like this entrepreneurial stuff like us, is like there's a lot of people, if you give great value to their children or to them, they'll see that value, and then like when it's time for you to raise your prices, which naturally you should, they'll be like, if they really care about what you're doing and they really like trust you, they're gonna be like, you know what, I get that, because most of those people have jobs and most of those people have family and most of those people pay taxes and they do all the adult stuff that we have to do. So their feelings are not going to be hurt when you raise your prices, you know, like because of taxes, when I was charging 35 an hour, I was only getting 20 of that really because you know, entrepreneur. So it's like now I make 75 and then maybe I only get 55 of that. But now it's like, oh, I'm making 55 like real dollars an hour versus 20. I mean, it's a $35 like up. And parents get that. Like they, like if you give true value and eventually like build some results and build a reputation, like people are they're gonna trust it. So you have to take the uncomfortable step and say, what compromise can I make to make me enjoy the thing that I'm doing, but also be fair pricing for myself and the parents, and also who do I want to work with? That's like, what type of person do I want to work with? Like for me, I said I do not want to work with anyone who hasn't wrestled for less than 2 years. I feel like it's a waste of money for the parents, and I feel like it's a waste of time for me. And when I found that out, I'm like, now I'm at like, I have this happy. I'm happy when I do privates now. Like I genuinely enjoy it, you know.
And you deliver a better product. You put more time into your product.
Yes.
And again, it's the flywheel of really good product, really good results. More people are willing to be there and give you the attention that you deserve.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, another long-winded answer, but that's for any of my entrepreneurial wrestling coaches or whatever coach you are, that's the way I would go about it.
Sweet. All right. All right, Brandon, it was amazing having you on. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much. Learned a ton from you, and we'll probably run this back again at some point. That was awesome.
I'm down, dude. All right, man. See you later.